Once again, I'm Victor Manibo. I'm an attorney here at Wang Law Office, and you are watching our newest YouTube show, The AM Show.
Hi, I'm the host Ariel. Also, I'm a senior paralegal in Wang Law Office. Our show going to start every Friday at 8 a.m. EST.
This show is a question and answer show for all your immigration questions. So if you have any immigration topic that you've always wanted to learn more about, please feel free to reach out to us via email or in our YouTube comments or via line. And we'll try our best to collect all your questions and answer them in themed episodes.
Yes. Victor, before we start the show, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Victor Manibo. I am an attorney here at Wang Law Office, and I've been working for the firm for 10 years. I handle mostly immigration cases and criminal cases as far as they impact someone's immigration status. I graduated from the Cardozo School of Law, and that was in 2012, and I'm admitted to the bar here in New York and also in New Jersey.
Yeah, and as we know that a few weeks back, we talked about I-601A waiver, and I know that there is a consular processing after the approval. Can you give me more detail about this?
Sure. Last week, or was it 2 weeks ago, we talked about I-601A waivers, which is the unlawful presence waiver, and how that is a path for someone to get a green card, but it requires them to go back to their home country and get the green card through consular processing. And consular processing is the way by which someone tries to immigrate into the United States by going through a consulate or a diplomatic office owned by the US in a foreign territory. And the consulate decides their application and grants the green card through an interview process. It's different from adjustment of status, which is the other way of obtaining a green card for people who are in the United States. So when you're asking about consular processing, that's what it means. Someone is trying to go through the process of getting a visa or getting a green card through a consular office abroad.
So before we get into the consular process, I know that in the US there is a location named National Visa Center. So what is that?
The National Visa Center is an agency within the United States that acts as an intermediary or like a middleman between USCIS and the foreign consulates. So for family-based petitions, we talked about this in one of our early episodes, right? USCIS is the one that decides a family-based petition. They decide whether or not these two people are actually related. The US citizen is related to the spouse or the parent. And once that petition is approved, the next step is for a person to get a green card. Now, for some people, if they're already in the United States, they're getting the green card through USCIS as well. They're applying by filing an I-485 application form. But for others, the person who does not have status is outside of the country, right? So they have to get their green card or their status through the consulate. And the consulate is a different agency. It's part of a different US department from USCIS. So USCIS is part of the Department of Homeland Security, and then consulates or foreign offices or diplomatic offices abroad are part of the Department of State. The National Visa Center is the agency that helps both of these sides communicate with each other. What happens is after an I-130 is approved by USCIS, the file from USCIS is sent to the National Visa Center. And then after it's received by the National Visa Center, they review it and they communicate with the consulate to schedule the next phase of the process, to schedule the visa interview, to schedule when someone is going to be appearing before the consulate. So basically, it's like the NVC is the communication between like USCIS, which is here in the US, and the consulate, which is abroad.
So there's only one NVC like USCIS, or you're going to have so many like the consulate?
There's only one NVC. There's only one National Visa Center. It's located here in the U.S. It's located in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and all the petitions that eventually have to be sent to the consulate is handled by that office. Now, for someone who is going through this process, you're probably asking, oh, do we need to communicate with NVC? Do we need to know what NVC is? No, you don't. USCIS will automatically send your application or your petition, your file to the NVC, and then the NVC will send that to the consulate. It's not something that someone needs to communicate with directly, but it's just good to know what the process is, because during this whole lengthy process, you might get emails or you might get communications with the National Visa Center. So it's important to understand what this agency is and what it does.
So when the NVC going to contact me regarding the visa?
When you get your I-130 approved, so USCIS says, okay, US citizen, you really are married to this person. For example, you get the approval notice. What happens when you read that approval notice, it will say that USCIS will send your file to NVC for consular processing, if that's the route that you're taking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so USCIS sends the file to NVC immediately after your I-130 is approved. Now, if you have immigrant or I-130 category that does not have an immediately available visa, or that has a priority date, meaning you have to wait in line. We talked about that before.
Yeah, we talked about that.
NVC is not going to act on your petition just yet until your priority date is reached. But if you're an immediate relative, like the example I was using with a U.S. citizen and a U.S. citizen spouse, you will get your file forwarded to NVC quickly after the I-130 is approved.
So you just mentioned that there is some sort of people need to wait for it, some sort of people no need to wait for it. For the people that need to wait for it, do they need to contact NVC when the visa is available?
No, you don't have to. What happens is you just wait. You don't have to push NVC. Obviously, if you are working with an attorney, as I hope a lot of our viewers are, your attorney is keeping track of what's going on, keeping track of your priority date, keeping track of making sure that NVC knows that the attorney is the attorney of record, so that the attorney will also get correspondences. But generally, you don't have to communicate with NVC and say, like, hey, do you have my petition? Or like, if you want to follow up, if your attorney wants to follow up, if there might be some sort of problem, then you can. But generally, you don't have to. You just have to wait for your priority date to be current. Again, if you're an immediate relative category, you don't even have to wait that long. There is still a wait, like a few weeks, but it's going to be automatically forwarded, and then NVC will hopefully forward that file to the consulate so that you can, so the case can proceed to the next step.
Yes, so it's better to hire a lawyer to deal with this. You don't need to worry about it. Your lawyer going to tell you what to do.
Right, and because we're talking about consular processing, we're talking about dealing with several different agencies. You're dealing with USCIS, you're dealing with NVC, you're dealing with the consulate abroad. It's always going to be better for someone to have guidance from a lawyer who knows how to communicate with all these different places.
Yes. I know that after NVC contact me, is there a fee that I need to pay, right? So what happened after I getting the fee, maybe the invoice?
Right. Once the I-130 is received by NVC from USCIS, the first thing that NVC does is send a letter to the applicant and the applicant's attorney saying that they received the file and they're ready for the next step, which is consular processing. But before that step can happen, you have to pay fees, because that's just how it is in government. With all our immigration applications, you have to pay a fee. So there is a fee for consular processing. There are two types of fees. There's the Affidavit of Support fee, and there's the immigrant visa fee. And you have to pay that. You can pay that electronically, or you can pay that by sending them a copy of your account information, and so that's the fee that you're talking about. That's generally the only fee that you have to pay at this stage. And then after you get those fees paid, the next step would be to fill out some application forms and send some supporting documents. If our viewers can remember, a few weeks back we were talking about adjustment of status, right? It's a way to get a green card. And now we're talking about consular processing, which is another way to get a green card for people who are outside of the country or doing I-601A. With the I-485, you have to pay fees, you have to fill out a form, and you have to submit very many supporting documents. So it's kind of like this in consular processing, right? NVC will ask you to pay some fees, and you have to pay those fees. And then you have to fill out a form. It's a different kind of form. It's not an I-485, it's called a DS-260. And then you have to submit supporting documents, just like with the I-485.
So what is the DS-260 form you just mentioned? What is that?
So the DS-260 is the immigrant visa application form for people who are trying to get their immigrant visa or their green card through the consulate. It's an online form. It's not like the I-485, which you have to print out and fill out. The DS-260 is an online form that you fill out through the Department of State website. So what happens is NVC sends you an invoice asking you to pay some fees, and they will send you information that will allow you to log into a specific DOS website, Department of State website. And that's where you can pay the fees, and that's where you can file or fill out the DS-260 form. So think about the DS-260 as the I-485 form. It's kind of the same. It actually has the same questions. Only difference is this one is fully online.
So everyone need to submit their own form?
Yes. So if each person who's applying for an immigrant visa through the consulate has to fill out a DS-260 form.
So after we complete it, do we need to save something for our own record or anything?
I mean, in general, if you fill out any online forms or fill out any forms, you should always keep a copy. If you are represented by an attorney and the attorney is good, they will be keeping a copy as well, because it's very important to know and remember the things that you filed with any immigration agency.
Especially if you have a good lawyer, they're going to tell you step by step what to do. You don't need to worry about it. You just follow your lawyer on the steps.
Exactly.
And you mentioned that there is some supporting document we need to submit, right? What kind of document they are?
So just like the I-485, the green card application, the consular processing for an immigrant visa requires some supporting documents. And those supporting documents, the purpose of the supporting documents is to establish that this person is eligible and deserves to be given a green card. So what kind of documents are those? Some of those documents are identity documents, proving who this person is. So things like your birth certificate or your passport. Those are supporting documents that are required at this stage. It also will require documents establishing that you will not be a public charge, that you will not be a burden to the US government once you get your green card, which means you have to upload financial documents to the DOS website. So with the I-485, we talked about having an affidavit of support, where the petitioner has to fill out a form saying that, I have enough money and I promise to support the relative that I'm petitioning for. So it's kind of the same in this process. With the DOS website, there is a way for you to upload your I-864 affidavit of support. You also have to pay an affidavit of support fee, like I mentioned earlier. And then you have to upload financial documents showing that the petitioner has enough financial resources to support you as you move and start your new life in the United States. So those are examples of supporting documents that are required. Depending on your situation, there might be more documents. For example, if you've had prior divorces, you might need to upload your divorce judgment. If you had criminal history, you might have to upload those documents. It differs from case to case, but just understand that when you apply through the consulate, you're doing the same steps that you do for adjustment status. You're paying a fee, you're filling out a form, and you're submitting a whole lot of documents.
Yes. You keep mentioning uploading document, right? So do we need to bring the original to anywhere to show them?
Well, the next stage after uploading all the documents is the consulate reviews the documents and will schedule you for an interview. So ideally, you will have the originals of those documents you uploaded together with you at the interview, so that the consular officer, the person who's going to be interviewing you, is gonna have the opportunity to inspect those documents and examine them and see that they're real.
So after I upload all those documents, how can I know if I submit everything?
When you submit the documents through the Department of State website, they will send you messages within the system, and they will also email you saying either, okay, all your documents are good and we will schedule you for an interview soon, or they'll send you like messages saying there are problems in the things that you submitted, you need to correct them. So it's important to always be aware of all your communications, make sure that you're getting your emails or your attorney's getting your emails, and also periodically checking the DOS website to make sure that there are no messages that are getting lost. But that's generally what happens. After you submit everything, you get a message from them. Hopefully they'll say, okay, everything is accepted, and now we are just planning on when to interview you, because that will be the next step. After they get all the documents, they'll schedule the interview.
So if there's anything went wrong, is there a way for us to contact MVC initially?
The best way to contact MVC is through its website. Their website has what's called a public inquiry form. It's a fillable form where you can put in your information and ask them questions or follow up with them. We can put the link to the website here, but yeah, you just go there and they're pretty responsive. They will respond to you or your attorney via email within a couple of weeks generally.
If you have your lawyer, they should know how to contact MVC. You can leave all your problem to your lawyer to do it.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, the lawyer will be handling that.
Yes. We keep mentioning consulate, right? So what is a consulate or an embassy?
So consulate and embassy are terms that our viewers probably hear about, but they don't really have a good idea because it's two different words and they have two different meanings, right? But they're kind of similar. So an embassy, let's talk about embassy first. An embassy is the foreign diplomatic office of a government. So for example, the US has offices all over the world in other countries, in actually like 160 something countries. They have an office. Usually it's in the capital city or the biggest, the largest city in that country. And that office is called the embassy. And what the embassy does is it serves all the US citizens who are in that country. So for example, if we have a US embassy in China, it's located in Beijing because that's the capital city. And the purpose of that embassy is to help all the US citizens who are located in China. They provide services to US citizens who are located in China, but also one of their functions is to do immigration processing. So people who are in China who are not US citizens, who want to immigrate into the US, that's a service that embassies provide. Now, the term consulate is very similar. It's also an office. It's an office in a foreign country, but a consulate is smaller than an embassy. Some countries only have an embassy. Some countries have embassies and consulates. For example, again, in China, I'll use China. China has an embassy in Beijing, but it also has consulates in 4 other cities. They have a consulate in Shanghai. They have a consulate in Guangzhou, for example. They have 4. So So basically, the U.S. has 5 total offices all over China, and they do.
Which office going to handle the actual consular processing?
They all handle consular processing, but specifically for China, most of the immigrant visa processing or green card processing is done in the Guangzhou consulate.
So when I'm going to have a visa interview overseas, after I submitting the document, I just submit it and then they're going to just schedule it right away?
When you submit your documents through the Department of State website and they review it and they say it's accepted, they'll notify the consulate. The consulate will receive the file, and then the consulate will communicate with you and your attorney about when your interview is going to be. Now, how long that takes depends on the consulate, depends on the situation, depends on how complicated your case is. Sometimes the wait can only be a few weeks. Sometimes it takes several months. There's no really hard and fast rule. Like even if you're just dealing with the same consulate, it's different from person to person, from consulate to consulate.
So what happened next? Because I know that there's some people doing 601A, some people just stay in maybe China and then just immigrant here. Is that process same or different?
It's kind of different. So for example, with the I-601A, which we talked about before, the person who's applying for the green card is still in the United States, but they have to go back to their home country to do the immigrant visa interview at the consulate, right? So for those people, they're doing the NVC fee payment, they're doing the DS-260, and they're uploading the supporting documents while they're still in the United States. And then when the file is sent to the consulate and the consulate says, okay, we have scheduled you for an interview on this date and this time, that's when an I-601A approved person can go back to the home country just to be ready for their interview. And that's slightly different, obviously, from someone who is applying for an immigrant visa or a green card who's already out of the country. If you're already out of the country, then you're just waiting for the consulate to send you
an interview.
Exactly. But again, for 601A, you wait until you're scheduled for an interview, and then that's when you leave to go out of the country, to go out of the US.
I heard that before the interview, I need to do some sort of medical exam, right?
So one of the things that the US looks for in their immigrants is making sure that they don't have any communicable diseases. This is something that we talked about when we were talking about I-485, right? They're not going to give a green card to someone who has a serious communicable disease because that's going to be a public health issue. So one of the requirements is to make everyone asking for a green card go through a medical exam. When we talked about the I-485, we talked about the I-693, and here it's similar. The immigrant visa applicant has to go through a medical exam in their home country. So, if you're I-601A, you get the interview, you have to fly back to do the medical exam before your interview date. If you're already there, you still have to do the medical exam before your interview date. The medical exam is performed by doctors and hospitals that are accredited by the U.S. Embassy or the U.S. Consulate. So there's going to be a list of doctors that the applicant can go to get their medical exam, and then the doctor performing the exam will fill out some forms and submit the results of that exam to the consulate. And in the end, it's a consular officer who decides whether or not to give you the immigrant visa or not.
So after the medical exam, we're going to go to the interview, right? What kind of document we need to bring for the interview?
The documents that you submitted to the DOS website that you uploaded, the supporting documents, ideally you would have all the originals of those. If you don't have originals, you can bring copies. If you know how to do it, if you're learning to do it, also bring a copy of the entire DS-260 application, just so you have a copy of the things that you submitted, the thing that you filled out. Generally, you just try to have a copy and the originals of everything that you already sent them. And that gives the consular officer the opportunity to review those documents, review those originals. But if you don't have any originals, or if you forget to bring the originals, it's probably not going to be a problem, but it's just best to have it with you. Now, one of the things that I also get asked is like, can I bring a lawyer to the interview? Not just the document, can I bring my lawyer? Consular interviews don't allow lawyers to be present, so it's just going to be you. That's why it's important to bring the documents, because that's going to help you, like, at least you have something to present. You can review those documents also while you're waiting, or while you're traveling to the interview, or like even on the interview itself.
Actually, an experienced lawyer like us, we're going to prepare the client before the interview.
Oh, absolutely.
Have them to have an idea what happened at the interview, what kind of document they need to prepare, and then even give them an entire package they can bring to the interview.
And kind of prepare them for the potential questions that will be asked, so that the applicant can anticipate what's going to happen, so they're not super scared. Interviews are very scary, so that they're not scared, and they can answer more honestly and correctly.
So what exactly going to be happen at the interview?
The consular interview is pretty much the same as other immigration interviews done by USCIS. The officer is going to ask basic biographical questions and questions about your eligibility for a green card and any, potential problem issues about your case. And this is why it's important, again, to be prepared yourself by reading the documents, and also hopefully your lawyer is going to prepare you for that. Now, it's a Q&A. So, the officer asks questions, you answer. If you're in if you're coming from a foreign country, if you're already there, you don't really have to worry about language barrier, because the consular officers speak the local languages. So you don't need an interpreter either. There's a Q&A between the consular officer and the applicant. And then at the end of it, the consular officer typically will say, okay, it's approved or denied.
So you mean that I'm going to get a decision just right after the interview?
Generally, it's that fast. For some cases, you might have to wait. You might have to come back for a decision. But generally, yes, they will issue a decision right away.
So after I got a decision, if it is approved, when are you going to get the US visa?
So when you get approved, first of all, you got to celebrate, like that's a big deal, right? Like, yay, you get approved for a green card. Then after that, you will get a visa. A visa is the document that allows you to travel into the United States, right? If it's, tourist visa or immigrant visa is the document. Is what we call the document. Now you'll get that document with you. It will be sent to you by the consulate in an envelope, and you bring that envelope with you when you try to enter the United States. It's a sealed envelope that you bring with you on the plane. You're leaving from China, for example. You're booking a flight. You bring that envelope with you, and then when you land on the other side, when you land in the United States, that sealed envelope is something that you will present to the CBP officer, the Border Protection Officer, and they'll open that, and the visa will be in there.
So what happens if the visa application is denied at the interview?
If the visa is denied, well, obviously that's very sad, right? Because this is a long process, and it's sad to get the consular officer saying, just saying, no, we're not letting you in. Your options are to ask the consulate to reconsider the decision. You don't do it right then and there. You don't beg the officer like, oh, please reconsider. You do it in writing. You do it with more evidence and law to try and convince them. You can also try to communicate with attorneys within the Department of State, whose job it is to kind of assist with problems and with denials. It's called LegalNet. And those avenues of reconsideration, communicating with the consulate and communicating with LegalNet, are things that an attorney can do. I don't think an ordinary person, even though they have a command of the English language, they really wouldn't know how to do that or how to approach reconsiderations. But those are things that an attorney can do for you. Unfortunately, there is no formal appeals process. It's not like, here in immigration court, if you lose one, you appeal to the BIA. With USCIS, if you lose, you can appeal to the AAO, or even with court, right? There's levels of appeal. At the consulate level, there is no formal appeals process. So you can ask the consulate to reconsider the decision or ask LegalNet for help. But those are basically two of the ways that you can overcome a denial.
That's why you need a lawyer to do it. A lawyer knows how to communicate with them and then knows how to use law to defend you.
And convince
them to reconsider the denial.
Exactly. And, worst comes to worst, you could also reapply and repeat the process again and repeat it better. And these options, it really depends on the reason for the denial, depending on, well, what was the reason that the consular officer gave in denying you. A lawyer will know, okay, this is the option that we need to do to overcome that problem.
Yes. Actually, Victor, today we kind of over 30 minutes already.
Oh, okay.
So time is up. Feel free to leave your question to us. Of course, you can subscribe our channel in any time.
Right. And, we got to the end. We got to the approve or deny. Hopefully, if you're going through this process, it gets approved. And if it gets denied, at least you have some options. And again, as always, if you have more questions about this or any other topic, please feel free to contact us with the methods that we mentioned before. Again, as I always close every episode, this show is just me as a lawyer giving my legal opinion. It does not mean that it forms a legal relationship or a lawyer-client relationship with any of our viewers. But if you are interested in being represented by someone who is competent in immigration matters, please feel free to contact us. Again, thank you for listening and for watching. Hopefully we see you again next week.
Yes, thank you. If you have any question, you are feel free to contact us in any method. Maybe just call our office directly. Just consult your case. And see you next time.
Bye.